Hello everybody, welcome back. This week we are reading Chapter 3. At the end of Chapter 2, Ian Munro was waiting to meet Pentti Virolainen. He was watching the church from the doorway of a nearby art gallery. Suddenly a car was approaching, coming up the hill very quickly. Chapter 3. Waiting for New Orders. The car was a black Mercedes. When Munro saw that there were 2 men in the front and 2 in the back, he knew they were not out sightseeing. He got right down onto the ground in the doorway, making himself as small as possible. By the time the car reached the top of the street, it was traveling fast, the engine very loud. As it turned the corner onto Kirkkokatu, the wheels screamed a little on the road, and there were 4 short sounds, gunshots. The Mercedes quickly disappeared down Kirkkokatu, turning right at the bottom onto Vejovantakatu. Munro looked up from where he was, ready to run across the street. Luckily, the men in the Mercedes hadn't seen him. Across the street, Virolainen had not been so lucky. He was lying on his back on the church steps, blood on the front of his shirt. Munro looked up and down the road. There was no one else around yet. Virolainen was clearly beyond help. Any information had died with him. It was time for Munro to leave. Back at his hotel, Munro took a whiskey from the bar up to his room. His work meant that he saw death more often than many people, but he never got used to it. He drank the whiskey slowly and took out his phone. Munro decided a text message was quicker and safer than a phone conversation. Anyway, he didn't have much to say. Quickly, he typed a short message and sent it to Naylor. Meeting off. Executive well. New orders needed. While he waited for a reply from London, Munro looked through Etelä Sauman Sanomat, one of the South Finland newspapers, which he had picked up from the hotel bar. There was a long piece about developments in Finnish bioengineering, and an interview with Jorma Lapolainen, a rich businessman who owned a number of bioengineering companies. Lapolainen was saying that Finland should lead the world, not just in areas like the internet and mobile phones, but also in science, and especially bioengineering. Munro also discovered that Jorma Lapolainen was making a name for himself as an important politician. In fact, the country would soon choose a new president and a new leader for Finland, and Lapolainen was saying that he was interested. The newspaper article ended with some personal information about Lapolainen. He lived with his sister and had homes in Helsinki, Lahti, and the south of France. There was also a photo of him speaking to a crowd of people at a meeting in Helsinki. He was a short man, with the very fair, almost white blonde hair that Finnish people sometimes have. He was waving with both hands at the crowd and smiling. A political smile, thought Munro, rather than a smile of truth and happiness. It seemed no more probable that Lapolainen would tell the truth than politicians anywhere else in the world. A sound came from Munro's phone. He read the message. Wait. Munro smiled to himself. Naylor was never a man to use more words than necessary. Anyway, he clearly needed the time before deciding the next move. So, how should Munro spend the waiting time? A few minutes later, Munro sat down at a table in the bar and ordered another whiskey. While he waited for his drink, he looked out of the window at the people walking past on Aleksandrinkatu. Lahti was getting ready for Friday night. Young men and women going out to bars and discos to enjoy themselves. He thought back to the time he had spent in Finland. 3 years as a student at the University of Jyväskylä, followed by a couple of years traveling up and down the country, doing all kinds of different jobs. He remembered staying in Lahti for a few months. And he remembered thinking in those days that Lahti seemed to be home to the most beautiful women in Finland. He smiled to himself. Monroe picked up a menu and realized he was very hungry. His last meal had been a long time ago on the plane from Heathrow. As he looked at the menu, he heard a soft voice over his shoulder. "If you don't understand the menu, perhaps I can help you?" He turned his head. Looking over his right shoulder were 2 beautiful dark blue eyes. They were set in a face that was also beautiful. A small but pretty nose, short blonde hair, and bright white teeth that were smiling at him this very minute. "That would be very kind," said Monroe, smiling back. "Rita Kovisto," said the young woman, holding out her right hand. Monroe took her hand in his and shook it. It felt warm. "Ian Monroe." "Are you English?" said Kovisto, taking the menu from Monroe and sitting down next to him. "Scottish," said Monroe, "but it's an easy mistake to make." Kovisto put her head on one side. "Are you making fun of me?" she asked. "No," said Monroe seriously. Kovisto smiled again. She was wearing a bright blue jumper and a short black skirt. She opened her bag, took out some cigarettes and offered one to Monroe. "No thanks," he said. "And you shouldn't." "I know," she said, "but I like a lot of things I shouldn't." She lit her cigarette and smiled at him again. "So tell me, what's a handsome Scottish man like you doing in a place like Lahti?" she asked. Monroe laughed. "I'm just on holiday," he said, "enjoying Finland and meeting wonderful Finnish people." "Of course we are wonderful," she said. "It is because of the wonderful weather we have here." And they both laughed. "So, Ian," she continued, "what do you do in Scotland or England?" At that moment, the waiter arrived with Monroe's drink. She explained the menu to him and then ordered some open sandwiches for him and a jalavina, a type of Finnish brandy, for herself. While she was ordering, Monroe sat back in his chair and looked at her. She was very beautiful, and she spoke excellent English. But she asked too many questions. Who was she, and why did she want to know so much? Excellent. That's the end of chapter 3. Who is this mysterious woman? I look forward to talking to you about this chapter in class. See you again soon. Bye for now.